Leaving behind the Midwest farmland at Mid-Ohio, the teams headed east and arrived at the historied circuit of Watkins Glen International. After GS qualifying, Dan Rash came out on top with Steve Brown rounding out the front row. In ST class, Carl Williamson tucked another pole position into his pocket, but James Stevenson lined up beside him with less than a tenth of a second between them in qualifying times. Unfortunately for Williamson, he seemed to have developed a curse for starting in first place, and this time suffered hardware problems with his pedals. Wall contact sent him to the pits and the back of the field by the end of lap 1. Cautions and accidents were the order of the day. Before halfway, the yellow flags came out 4 times. Phil Schrader made contact with Fred Masters' Band-Aid Mustang, and Chris Duffy found the mess impossible to avoid. Clayson gave the back of Alexis Molina a shove, who later drifted into Andre Trago. Both took hard knocks into the inside wall, and Trago came out wheels up. On lap 10, connection issues for Antti Tuominen gave Fred Masters yet another scare when his MX-5 appeared right in front of the Mustang under braking. Tuominen narrowly avoided overguard, but the Dane's luck ran out a few hundred feet later when he rejoined directly into the side of Schrader's number 15 Mustang. Close racing between Richard Losper and Eric Biggs came to a head at the exit of the boot, and the two made contact. This also collected Matthew Reinhold. In the midst of the yellows, Arthur Chan's car disappeared in a puff of netcode, removing him from the lead. In GS, Eric Smith had yet to make his pit stop and was also shuffled to the top. But Steve Brown decided he didn't want to wait for Eric's stop and pounced for the lead. Meanwhile, the ST lead was changing hands faster than a drug deal as it swapped between the likes of Stefan Maurienne, Chris Moran, and Patrick Gallagher. But Carl Williamson overcame his gremlins from lap 1 and already worked his way back to the lead pack. He capped off his charge with a double overtake for the lead. On lap 20, Stevenson flirted with disaster at turn 11, which caused him damage that would later hurt his top speed. Up at the front, Brown used everything at his disposal to hold back a charging Dan Rash. Both parties refused to yield and came to blows first on lap 25, then again on lap 28. Unfortunately, for the second race in a row, Rash experienced computer problems. His screen unexpectedly went black, causing him to veer off the road. The damage sent him too far back to recover. Fred Masters' miserable day was completed on lap 33 when he got himself turned around at the heel of the boot. This brought out the final caution, with only 8 minutes left on the clock. That allowed Russell Clayson to close the gap to GS leader Steve Brown. In ST, Arthur Chan had made his own recovery drive and was all the way up into second. But Mr. Unlucky lived up to his reputation, and his connection went out once again, extinguishing his hopes of a win. As the clock ticked down, the green returned with enough time for a single lap dash to the finish. But the restart was met with confusion by Steve Brown, and Russell Clayson jumped him before the start-finish line. J.D. Baumgartner looked to relieve Brown of second, but Steve managed to hold him off. In the end, Clayson took his first CESCS win. Brown followed home in second, and Baumgartner came in third. The marshals had missed Cannonball's infraction and decided to hand him a stiff warning post-race instead, while letting him keep the controversial victory. In ST, Carl Williamson caught lap traffic in the final corner, which brought Huffman side by side with the Englishman. But it was not enough, and Elliott's number 52 machine missed the win by a mere 3/100ths of a second. James Stevenson filled the final spot on the podium for the second time in a row. This was Williamson's first win in Season 3. After the carnage at the Glen, the teams have traveled back home again to Indiana. Victory at the Brickyard is coveted by many, but only one will have the chance to kiss the bricks as we get ready to compete at the legendary Indianapolis Motor Speedway.